When I started this, I had tons of doubt. And I even had people showing up saying, like, this is never going to work. Or, if you told me that I'd serve 1,000 kids, I never would have believed you. There were only 7 girls who came to that Mother's Day retreat that first year. And if you told me I needed to raise $8 million just to do the thing, I would never have believed you. And I definitely would have said no to this. But what I didn't realize in the beginning was I was doing this as much for that young mom or dad who died, who needs to leave this earth knowing their kids are okay. No matter what type of loss, that you have to know that your kids would be okay and it wouldn't destroy them, because that's most people's fear. And so I'm doing it as much for them as I am for their kids.
Welcome back to Mic Up, the next chapter, where we explore the stories and the voices shaping what's coming next in our communities. I'm your host, Kristin Guglielmo, and today I am joined by a very special guest, Kara Belvin from Empower. Hi, Kara. Nice to have
Kristin.
You here.
So good to be here.
Empower is an incredible organization dedicated to supporting kids and young adults up to age 24 who have lost a parent, giving them mentorship, connection, and hope at no cost to their families. Their work is about more than getting through grief. It's about building a community where young people can heal and thrive. In this conversation, Kara will share her journey, what drives the mission of Empower, and the powerful impact they're making every single day. So let's jump in. And Kara, tell us a little about yourself and Empower.
Great. Well, I'm the founder and now CEO of Empower. I started this organization about 12 years ago, Kristin, and it was never my fantasy to start a nonprofit in my mother's memory. Truly, what fueled my interest, of course, in the world of childhood bereavement is my personal loss. I lost my mom, Kit, to breast cancer when I was 9 years old. And growing up with an army of family and friends to rally around my dad and my brother and I, that we're forever grateful for. But I will tell you, it was, a very isolating experience, never having met another girl like me, never having met an adult woman who survived the loss of a parent when they were young. And so I'd say, it was quite honestly like living on planet Mars for about 10 years. And it was a different time. I will give it that. It was the late 80s, as I was growing up in a time of loss. We call it like the grief or the dark ages of grief. But aside from that, I would say not all that much has changed in the last 30 years since my mom died. And so it really fueled my interest. I had this idea now 12 years ago, but it was an idea that sort of nagged at me in the back of my mind. And whenever you have one of those ideas, Kristin, I'm sure you've had them. And you say,
they keep going back, especially when you're laying there at night.
Yes. And then when you wake up at 3 a.m, and then you keep a little notepad by your bed and say, like, this is such a good idea. Why didn't somebody else do it? And then
I just
you realize you're
remember
somebody
later, but now it's not so good.
Exactly. Yeah. However we do it, but that feeling. And I felt like I was uniquely positioned to start a nonprofit. So what I did was I set out in a, very busy world. I had young kids at the time. My husband and I were like drowning in student loan debt and working full time. But I said, I'm going to bring teenage girls away every Mother's Day because that was such a lousy time for me growing up. Beautiful bereavement camps in the summertime, and throughout the year, there's great center-based grief supports that hopefully kids find their way to, or even maybe a therapist they find their way to.
Did they have this in the 80s for you or no?
No, I mean, that's a hard no, Kristin.
So you were lost there.
No, my brother and I did not receive services. I hold no ill will for that. But truthfully, even if they were available,
if you figured that out.
Yes, it was, the world of childhood bereavement. I worked so many years in breast cancer and fundraising and advocacy. And so I saw the direct result when people come together and they can ignite a media firestorm in the world of breast cancer, and Susan G. Komen and BCRF. Well, no one was really doing that in childhood bereavement. I don't know that all of us thought there was a need for it. And until you realize children who lose a parent, they are at risk. They're at-risk youth in America, and it has lifelong consequences. And so I was fortunate. I have a beautiful life. I'll tell you that through and through, but I didn't have access to anything like this besides maybe a school psychologist who maybe pulled me aside once or twice. But no, my dad wasn't accessing nor was anyone offering, but my dad did not access the bereavement camp if there was one or so on.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
don't
the
know how
pictures
much
came
they
down
were
off the
talked
wall.
about back then. If there
Kristin,
were
I
there,
don't
I'm
think,
not even sure that they
no,
thought about our mental health in any way whatsoever back in the 80s.
no. And maybe in the 90s and even the
Yeah, I
early
think that's when it
2000s, I don't
started,
know.
maybe.
Yes. And so for us, which is a very common story, the pictures sort of came off the wall and we moved forward. And so what I do today is really a beautiful way to honor my mother, who was just this incredible, amazing mother and woman and would have given anything to still be here and was sick and died. And none of us saw that coming. And so my big bright idea was I would take teenage girls away every Mother's Day. It would be free of charge. It would be in a hotel space. It would be an overnight. It wouldn't be in the summertime on a campground. It would give the girls a chance to put their feet up, because it's like a 1-ton brick on your chest. When your mother or father dies in childhood, I will tell you, you may as well walk around with a 1-ton brick on your chest. You think about it often, if not every day, all day. You are thinking about this terrible loss, and it's painful, and it makes you different from your peers, which is just one part of it. But you are in the missing of her or him for so much of your day. So the retreat was designed to be non-therapeutic, even though I started my career as a school psychologist and huge proponent of therapy. But it was designed to be run by lay people, because growing up, no one talked to me about my mom. And I think most people said, well, that's reserved for like a therapist can talk to Kara, right? But as if I was like made of glass and I would shatter if you asked me how I was doing on any given day. So I designed this event to be non-therapeutic, volunteer-driven, free of charge, and beautiful and fun and welcoming. And so it was yoga and meditation. It was this women's circle. It was dinner in Boston. It was, again, designed to, events and activities that were aimed at the girls' interests. It was hair and makeup. It was, how to pop a pimple.
Yeah, I mean,
It was all the things you think.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing night out with your mother.
Yes.
I
What
mean,
they're, and
in the
yeah,
city and dinner time, and you're getting ready, and you're at the hotel, and you can go swimming later, and they're getting all these things that they never got to have or might not have had as much as they should have, because they lost their
exactly.
parents so young.
And there was some confusion in the beginning. I think somebody called it Troop Beverly Hills, and I said it is not Troop Beverly Hills. This is a girl whose mother died. She is being asked to still do her homework, to go to violin practice, go to lacrosse practice, to keep up with the world going around her as normal. And there's nothing normal about her. There's nothing normal about my life. But I had straight A's and I was college bound and I had a ton of support. But I may as well have lived on planet Mars. And so I'm telling you, it's a great deal of pain to deal with the loss of your parent when you have no support, and therefore you don't grieve. So I didn't grieve until I was in my late teens, early 20s, when I honest to God, I woke up and said, oh my God, my mom died. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I survived that.
Yeah.
So that was the idea. It was events. It was a year-round event series for kids who've lost a parent. And then I built the mentor program. I essentially knocked on the door of big brothers, big sisters, and I said, hey, why don't you do mirror matching? Like, why wouldn't you match, a young girl with a woman like me? And they didn't do the data. They didn't have the data. They didn't have that kind of analysis. They weren't focused on that for a good reason. They've been doing it for 100 years. And so I very arrogantly said, well, I'm going to set out to do this. It took me about a year. I formed a great task force, so many incredible, generous, talented people around me. And we built the only mentor program in the world for kids in grief. And so we match boys, girls, non-binary youth. We match them with an adult person who can relate to the loss of a parent.
Now, are you in New England? Where are you based out of, or where do you serve?
Yep. I'd love to one day be serving in all 50 states, but we're 12 years old. And as anyone knows, the journey of a social entrepreneur or startup, we've raised $8 million in 12 years, but truthfully, it wasn't enough to be active in all 50 states. So I'm sort of building the plane while we were flying it. And I was, for the first 5 years, Kristin, we were only active in Boston. And so that's where the founder lives. This is my adopted hometown. I'm from Hartford, Connecticut, but my adopted hometown of Boston really wrapped their arms around this idea and funded it and helped me grow. So for the first 5 years, we were receiving thousands of inquiries from people around the world. And I'm grateful for podcasts like this and national press like the Today Show. People were hearing about us and saying, well, I live in Chicago. I live in Los Angeles. My mother died when I was 10 years old. Where were you? And I'll start a chapter for kids in my community. And with
That's
that, we built
amazing.
out a national expansion. Yeah. So today
Wow,
we're
that's
only active
amazing.
in 10
And now
cities.
you just need
I'm
to get
proud
it.
to say 10.
Yeah, well, you want to get, now you want to get it into like each city, so that
Yeah.
everyone knows about it. Yeah, that's amazing. So now tell me about walk me through the mentor program. How do the matches made?
Yeah. So I did not reinvent the wheel. With permission, I basically replicated that model of Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we actually worked with a technical support grant from this terrific nonprofit called Mass Mentor Partnerships, part of a large parent org called Mentor. So Mentor is the guru in youth mentorship. And across America, there are literally thousands of youth mentor programs. So we essentially emulated all policies and procedures and screening, recruitment, matchmaking, and monitoring. So there's really 4 steps to making a match. It takes some time. Sometimes, a mentor applies today and they're matched with a mentee within the next 2 months. Sometimes they're waiting 9 or 10 months because there's a secret sauce. So the family has to, show a commitment to this program, and they have to really, surviving guardian, mom or dad, or maybe it's grandma or a neighbor who's raising the child, has to show a commitment to the program. The mentors commit to spending 5 hours a month for 12 months with the child, developing a rapport and in all, everyday normal activities. It's not what you think. It's not really just crying on a shoulder every time they're together. We love that if that's what the child really wants. We serve the whole child, but it's really everyday activities, just like a big sister or big brother would do at a BBBS. And
Yeah,
so
just talking
we
about
make a
your
match.
day. What did you do
It
today?
is.
What was your
It
favorite
is.
part of the day?
Yeah.
All
It's
those
not to
things.
replace the role of the parent. A male mentor is not replacing dad. That was never the premise. So
Right. It's just,
mentorship, by design, is an adult who shows a young person they care.
yeah. That's amazing. So now you have this event on Mother's Day where you do this. What other events do you host or, do to raise money?
Well, so the events for the kids happen throughout the year very organically. So yes, on Mother's Day and Father's Day, as you would think, we have these terrific events. And so, May and June is very busy around here for good reason. Throughout the year, though, we look to our ambassadors and our volunteers in the community, and they plan the events. So very safely and responsibly, and with training and coaching, of course. But the events can look like, jewelry making classes. It could be a Red Sox game. 10 kids last Friday night were at Fenway Park, and we're giving high fives to the Red Sox players walking onto the field. It can be a trip to the museum. It can be Top Golf. It could be a day of golf on a golf course. It can be anything aimed at the child's interests. I always joke, we had a celebrity chef in Boston who would donate his time and talent and teach the girls how to roll sushi. And no one ate the sushi. And I hate to say it that way, that this was like a wasteful food. The girls it wasn't about sushi. The girls were in a room. Look around the room, realize you're not alone in your grief. You're here with 30, 50, however many kids in one room who also are powering through their grief, have to go to school the next day and keep up with a world going on around them as normal when nothing is really normal. But here's this chef, and this was a chef who, he just is such a great supporter. And I've met these people all around the world. I cannot believe how I've done it and how they come into our lives. But he didn't have parent loss, but he knew hard things, and he worked very hard and built, a restaurant group that became very successful, and he was just giving back. But he did not lose his mom or his dad in childhood, but he knew loss, and he knew adversity for sure.
Yeah, that was my
question. So we're trying to build community.
Are your mentors, are they all people who have lost a parent at a young age, or is it, obviously whoever wants to come into this community and help a child and just be there for them, just like a mentor in anything?
To exist, we require thousands of volunteers. I have manpower from thousands of volunteers, but to serve as a mentor, we do have a prerequisite. that you have to have had the experience of loss. In certain circumstances, a mentor has been someone who does not have parent loss, but those are very specific instances when the family understands and is on board with this, with the goal of the mentorship. Mentors are men and women who have experienced a loss of their mom or dad at any age. So they could be 40 years old and have just lost their father last year. And out of that gratitude for having their father for as long as they did, want to really serve in this role. So mentors are people who really can relate to the loss of a parent and teach loss is survivable. Doesn't matter the time of loss, doesn't matter the type of loss. My mother died of breast cancer. We have a lot of children that have come through our program. We served 1,000 kids last year, many of whom have lost a parent to a sudden death, like suicide or homicide, substance abuse, or a car accident, a sudden heart attack. So we always say, like, my grief is not more shiny or more important than yours. In loss and in grief, like, hard things are just hard. So we try not to do that thing where we say, well, Kara, you lost your mom when you were 9 years old. That must have been so much harder because you were so young and probably have no memories of her. Well, that's not true at all. I have very vivid memories of my mother. Or we say things like, well, you had time to say goodbye. Well, my brother and I actually did not say goodbye to my mother. That wasn't how the end of her life happened. And so we try to say, above all, we are non-judgmental. We don't make any assumptions about someone's story, someone's family. And so again, mentors are really just people who show up for a child, and especially in
and
grief.
It's like what you said
hard.
before. You grieved at 20.
I did. Yeah.
So you don't know where that person is going to be at any time in the stage of their life. They may just be having a really bad moment even.
Yes.
So
yes. And as we say, the research suggests, healthy development is really impacted, at the time of loss is really the best time for a child to begin to grieve, not this sort of prolonged, or complicated grief that I would say I had, Yeah. So it's really, we encourage families to simply enroll at any time that's right for them. We don't have a time frame. We don't say, well, it's got to be 6 months, or that doesn't work in grief. So families are encouraged to sign up right now, or maybe they hear about us today and they wait 3 years, and that's okay too. There's absolutely there's no pressure and no obligation when families call us. The doors are just open.
Now, are you, in the schools, so the schools know? I mean, those are the people. Those are who are going to know exactly when a parent of a young child passes away. So that would be great to make sure that, like, all the schools know this is an available service.
Yeah, and we're free of charge. Yeah. So we encourage anyone working in a school. That could be the gym teacher, the principal, the school social worker. I know this because I was a school psychologist. It could be any ally in the building or in the district who knows and loves a child. They should make a referral to us, and our programs are free of charge. So it's important that schools know that, because schools are, have to be careful when making referrals to outside sources. So the schools, area clinicians, hospice organizations, and just friends and neighbors like this. Anyone listening, sadly, if you know and love someone who's lost a parent, you can be the one making the referral on our website. It's that easy. With the family's blessing, you can make the referral.
So now tell me like a story of someone that a mentee, and how it's helped them. And I'm sure you have 8 million of them, but
I have 8 million of them. I have 1,000 of them from last year alone. If I had to think of one, I'll tell you one story that I love that is maybe a little bit unpredictable. There's a young woman. She's in high school, senior in high school, and was getting her driver's permit. Now, mom died and dad, she doesn't live with dad, so she's being raised by her grandparents. Getting your permit, and my son just did this last year. I know getting your permit means you need about 40 hours of driving hours. And her mentor spent her time driving in those driving hours. And so, sometimes I'll get a photo. And so the mentor texted me this picture. It was this gorgeous picture of her mentee behind the wheel of a Jeep. She has a Jeep and it had the top down. And here she was spending a Sunday just trying to get in some driving hours. And the look on this young girl's face, and I know driving is independent. You know, driving is a source of
Huge.
freedom for some kids, especially kids in grief. Sometimes they want to take the car to the cemetery and they want to do that alone. Sometimes they just need to get out of the house and they want to be alone. And sometimes that's what driving gets you. And so driving, it's a privilege, and to, you know, but to have those hours and to help grandma and grandpa, you know, fulfill that, that's what our mentor was doing. So here I am, I get this amazing picture on my phone, just like, hey, had a great day. Look at us. We were doing some driving hours today. And I'm just like,
amazing.
that's mentorship. That's it. That's grief. That's a woman who owns that Jeep. She's a woman whose mom died when she was a teenager. She remembers how painful that was. Now she lives a beautiful life and she went on, she survived it. And she thrived, as we love to say, like we thrive in grief. Nobody thrives in grief, right? But she's a survivor, and she's teaching her mentee that, you know, life moves on too, and life is hard. And here's a hard thing. Your mom's not here to help you learn how to drive. And she's missing out on that. That's a fun thing for a parent to do. It's a scary thing, but it's like,
I just did it
my
recently.
mother didn't get to see that.
However, he's probably the best driver of them all. But it was pretty scary.
Well, good for you.
I
Great
went to
teacher.
3 of them. And then we had a couple other people we taught.
Well, and I think about that, and just such, you know, the reason why this mentor was loving this time was you're teaching something, right? I mean, mentors can do a lot of teaching, and we could do things like teaching how to pop a pimple or go prom dress shopping. Of course, we love that. Of course, I love when our male mentors take them golfing. Of course, but that's not grief. You know, that's not, those are stereotypical things that we get from our mom or our dad. But my mom missed out. She never saw me get my driver's license or graduate high school, or she never saw me have a baby. You know that as you get older. And here's this young girl realizing the empathy she has and the love she has for her mom will miss it. Her mom's not going to see these milestone moments, but she's also missing her mom and needs her. She wants that guidance from her parent who died, and she's missing it. And all of her peers have it. And so what a beautiful way a mentor shows up for a kid like that. I mean, that is a scary thing. Here's the keys to my car, and let's get some driver's hours in. But it's just such a beautiful way that people keep showing up for people here at Empower. And I'm just proud of the community that we built.
That's
like
amazing.
Eternally grateful.
What challenges do you face in reaching more families or recruiting mentors?
It's hard. Loss is hard. Hard things are hard to talk about. So for both mentors, you know, a mentor who's listening now, a prospective mentor might say something like, you know, my dad died a long time ago and I kind of packed that away. And to be in service to a child who's experienced a loss of their father just means that that's going to probably be hard. That's probably, you know, I'll be the first one to admit, when I started this nonprofit, it brought me to my knees. The reason I started this nonprofit was I had my very first babysitter when my family and I moved to Boston. She was a little girl she was a young teenage girl whose mom had just died. And that brought me to my knees. And that's what sparked this for about 2 years before starting the nonprofit. But while knowing this young girl, this babysitter, and getting to know her family is what really made me think there's something missing here. Like nothing has changed for her. Not much has changed since my mother died, and she's experienced all this same great pain and same great isolation. So for a mentor, it's hard to recruit, but once a mentor hears about us, I think they kind of tuck us away and then they call when they're ready. And a mentor who's really ready is someone who says, you know, I'm not using this as an opportunity to heal my own pain or my own loss, but I'm using this as an opportunity to really be in service. And there's no greater service. There's been no greater service for me in really holding space for a kid like me. And then in reaching more families, some families may hear about us. The school might tell dad or might tell mom about us. And they, again, might tuck it away and say, you know, I'm just trying to get through right now. And I'm just trying to put one foot in front of the other. Maybe later I'll give Empower a call and we'll think about that. Because you know, a mom coming home and telling her daughter or telling her son, hey, there's this great mentor program, that child might say, I'm good. Like, I'm good right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're all in this together. I hope that any mentor, prospective mentor, any family hearing this would say, I never thought about youth mentorship for kids in grief, because I literally was the first person that kind of thought about that in 100 years. So they have to kind of think about it and say, what would that be? To know someone who's survived loss is transformational. Had I had someone who pulled me aside, like a 40-year-old woman growing up in Hartford, Connecticut, had someone pulled me aside and said, I know what you're going through and you're going to get through this. It would have changed my life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, and what, Kristin, out of the gratitude you have, I'm a mom. My kids are 18 and 14, and how lucky I am. My son just committed to college. He'll play lacrosse at Bates College in Maine.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't for the life of me stop thinking, my God, I get to know this. My mother didn't know where my brother and I, that we were going to go off and we were going to play tennis, Division I tennis at UConn. She didn't know that. And that's part of grief. That's
Go
what's so painful
Huskies.
for us. Of course. I mean, and UConn was transformational. And we say, like, all the research says, when a child leaves their childhood home and goes out into the world, whether that's a college campus or wherever, is sometimes when they start to grieve. And I was a freshman on the campus of UConn. My brother was a senior. He came over one day, picked me up from my dorm, took me out to lunch like a good big brother should. And he said, hold on to your hat because you're about to grieve mom. And I was like, well, wait a minute. First of all, we don't talk about, we're like thick as thieves in my family, but we don't talk about our mom who died. And he said, you're going to start to grieve mom. And he was right. And that freshman year was my like rebirth. It's when I started to really pay tribute to my mom and honor her and think about her. But it's when I really started to grow and I really started to, acknowledge how impactful that story of my loss really was on me and our whole family. So yeah. These are tricky things. I mean, these are hard topics to have. And I love that you're asking me them, even though you have no personal tie to the cause, Kristin. The most
Yeah.
beautiful thing in this nonprofit world or in philanthropy is that you're showing up out of the gratitude you have for being there for your kids or having your parents and having that kind of support and not having had this experience of an early loss, that you pay tribute to us, that you support us. That was a pleasant surprise when I started this.
Comparison, which is not a comparison, is my best friend died at 43 and her children were left.
I'm sorry.
At 9 and 11. And she was my best friend since 3 years old. And watching her children was devastating for me. Yeah. So, I hope I live till my kids are at least 18. Now that's a sad hope after she died. So
I know you were so impacted by that.
I was.
No, thank you for saying that. Well, thank you for saying that. And I still to this day am friends with my mom's friends who are in their late 70s. And I say to them all the time, thanks for showing up for me. That must have been so sad. They took me back to school shopping. Picture that. It's a 40-year-old, neighbor taking me back to school shopping and how sad she was because her friend, my mom, that she was grieving was missing all of it. It was.
Yeah. As a mother, how awful that is to think that could be what happens to you or what happens to your kids.
Yes. It's funny. I always said, when I started this, I had tons of doubt. And I even had people showing up saying like, this is never going to work. Or, if you told me that I'd serve 1,000 kids, I never would have believed you. There were only 7 girls who came to that Mother's Day retreat that first year. And if you told me I needed to raise $8 million just to do the thing, I would never have believed you. And I definitely would have said no to this. But what I didn't realize in the beginning was I was doing this as much for that young mom or dad who died, who needs to leave this earth knowing their kids are okay. And no matter what type of loss, that you have to know that your kids would be okay and it wouldn't destroy them, because that's most people's fear. And so I'm doing it as much for them as I am for their kids. I packaged it up in a bow, and like I have like a mentor program, and I have these events, and then I go out and I fundraise all year long, and I'm asking for funders to support my mentor program, my events. But this is what it all is. I mean, this stuff is really hard to talk about, and most of us really would rather talk about something else.
Well, it gets you. It gets you right
Yeah,
here
it's
when you're
hard.
talking about it, no matter, I mean, life is hard. Life is difficult.
Life is hard.
And, it's just, you have to get back up and keep going, but it's just not that easy sometimes. So when you have someone, if you
No,
could have someone there, you know, to, to reach out to and help you, even if it's just to go for ice cream or whatever.
that it's that simple. And, I think it's hard for some people to understand because, as one donor said to me, and I have a great deal of respect for him, I approached a donor many years ago. I was only serving girls of mother loss. And my vision was, of course, to expand, to become more gender inclusive, to serve boys and to serve kids who lost their father. And so I asked for a transformational gift, and he graciously declined. And he said, your mission doesn't resonate with me because there's life and there's death, and the Lord just helps you through it. As if to say, parents die, and kids have to accept that fact that their parents will age and their parents will die. And I just thought, that's not the right donor for me, because I couldn't disagree with you more. There are a lot of people hurting in this country, and there are a lot of people who hurt after a loss. And the loss it's not linear. It doesn't get better after 2 years, and we all don't move on. It becomes a tattoo. The tattoo fades, but it is not going anywhere. And I let a lot of people tell my story for many decades. And I will tell every child that enrolls, never let anyone tell your story. I'm not wallowing in something. I'm not hanging on to something but this is a story that changed the trajectory of my life. My mother died, and that was like my before and my after. And it's a painful experience. It was a very painful experience for my father, and my father did such an incredible job. I don't know how my father did that, truly, but it was hard, really hard.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your biggest funding and resources needs right now?
So we're going to do a big major gift fundraising push. So we're going to launch a $5 million 3-year campaign. Major gifts have been the most cost-effective way to fundraise, truly. Trust-based philanthropy, I believe, as you and I have talked about the documentary Uncharitable, everyone should see. Trust-based philanthropy is transformational. A couple of years ago, we received the most incredible phone call, an unanticipated and unrestricted $1 million donation from a Boston philanthropist, incredible friend, and just an unbelievable supporter. And with that $1 million gift, that is actually when I finally realized my vision to become more gender inclusive. And so we started to serve boys. We changed our name from Empower Her to Empower. It wasn't groundbreaking. I mean, we really thought about a new name, but Empower was what we landed on. And we expanded to serve kids who'd lost their father, which for many years people were asking, why don't you serve father loss? Are you perpetuating the stereotype that it's harder to lose your mother than your father? And that was not my narrative. So with a $1 million gift,
you could expand.
I realized I could expand. It wasn't about geographical expansion. I had done that, prior to COVID. We went national, we went international, but I became more gender inclusive when I had the resources, and that $1 million gift allowed me to really do that and create a pseudo endowment that allowed me to safely and responsibly do that. So now when you receive that, Kristin, when you, as a small nonprofit, when you've received a 7-figure gift and you see that transformation, then you learn from that. And so with that, we're really going to be maniacally focused on major giving. We do a lot of grant writing, but sometimes grant writing is a shot in the dark. We do a lot of special events. We, did the 500-person gala for many years. That was very, very impactful for us and created a major gift pipeline. We do a lot of charity runners events, so we can have a mentor who runs a 5K, their local 5K or 10K race or half marathon, and go on Facebook with a donation link that tells the story of their loss that many of their friends from college never even knew. So we'll raise upwards of $1 million a year. It's a small operating budget for us to be only in these 10 states. So to be in 50 states, we're looking at, you need $20 million really to do that. And that's where our board and our staff is headed.
Yeah. So that was my question. Your vision for Empower next 3 to 5 years is?
Well, it's 50 states one day. I don't know that even in 5 years you can do that. We have a long way to go in grief and loss. We have a long way to go in the world of childhood bereavement. It's a field that unfortunately is still under-researched. It's underfunded, but I'm trying. We were kind of that like little engine, running like the little engine that could, and we quickly rose to become one of the largest childhood bereavement nonprofits across America. But there are about 200 of us doing this really good work. And all of us are kind of working in little silos. We're keeping our head down and raising money and, and producing programs like, bereavement camps, Tuesday night support groups. And for me, I'm maniacally focused on a mentor program and helping us see why youth mentorship is so critical for kids. To, see someone ahead of you on your grief journey, as they say, is critical. And so, major giving is, it's no small feat. Last year, I'd say about 50% of our revenue came from major gifts of $10,000 or more from individuals, private foundations, family foundations, corporations. And so that's where we'll stay focused.
And do you guys use technology to help you impact, scale impact? What are you guys using now? Are you thinking about that?
We would like to build an app. So to really, we've leveraged technology to the best of our abilities. Everything from, a nonprofit who doesn't have the money for a CRM should look at Airtable. Airtable is terrific, super sophisticated, amazing integration today. And we watched them scale and, they were getting $100 million in additional funding. We were benefiting. We leverage technology, of course, in-house. A lot of our software helps to streamline communications. We're using AI as best we can to even write grants. And then the technology that really gives the family more autonomy and makes even our mentor matches more efficient, makes events for the kids more efficient, is technology. Right now we use meetup.com. It's a great piece of software. It's cheap and easy, but truly we really need to build our own app, and that's what the campaign will help us do.
It will help you do. So what's the best way that people, mentors, donors, advocates can get involved that are listening?
Go directly to our website. Take 5 minutes. Just click on a couple of those different pages and see what resonates. As a donor, if you care about childhood bereavement, if you have a personal tie or not, consider what it means for children. Consider what it means for us across America, even after the pandemic, which really unfortunately put us in a very terrible position, having experienced so much loss in such a short period of time. 1 in 11 children in America will lose a parent before the age of 18. And that was grossly exacerbated during COVID. And so we're going to be in some real trouble, I think, in 5 to 10 years when we think about, childhood bereavement as an under-researched, underfunded, I think, public health crisis.
Yeah, well, it is. Absolutely.
It is. Anyone interested in volunteering their time. So if you look on our website, you can find the 10 regions of the country that we're active in. We're always looking for volunteers who can plan events for kids, keeps our budget, keeps our costs down when volunteers, not staff, are really planning and producing these really awesome, like super fun events for kids. Just again, with the idea just to get kids together, meet another kid like them that they otherwise never would meet, because in their school, they're the only kid whose mom died. We, of course, are always looking for mentors. We're always looking for men and women, and there's no obligation. It's a 5-minute mentor inquiry form on our website. It's a no obligation. Get on a Zoom call with us for an hour and we'll talk. If it's the right fit, you'll proceed with a full mentor application so that we can start the screening process. But there's no obligation, because it really requires that the mentor is really ready and wants to do this. And of course, if you're a family, who's experienced a loss and your children are up through age 24, that's how old, that's the range of service we provide is up through age 24 because a mentor must be 25 years old or older. So if you're a family who, unfortunately and very sadly has experienced a loss, to consider enrolling your children. And that's no obligation as well. That's, we'll reach out within a day or two. We'll get on a Zoom call. We'll have a cup of coffee at a local Dunkin' Donuts, with a local field coordinator that we have sort of positioned throughout the country, and no obligation, but really just learn more about your family and about what your concerns might be for the child and how we might be able to, provide some really impactful programs. So there's something for everyone. Again, we have thousands of volunteers. We have 3 full-time staff. I mean, we're talk about small, but mighty staff.
That's amazing.
We do a lot with a little. Yeah.
So finally, is there anything else you'd like to share before you wrap up?
No, I would say thank you so much that we continue to be word of mouth, Kristin. And so, your podcast is just the way that we spread awareness. And I guarantee you someone will, hopefully soon, but I guarantee someone will reach out and say, there'll be a drop down and say, how did you hear about Empower? And they'll say, podcast.
Well, let's hope, as long as we at least get one person, that's all that matters. So
that's it.
Kara, thank you so much for sharing your story and the incredible work that Empower is doing to support young people through some of the toughest moments in their lives. For our listeners, if you'd like to hear more, get involved as a mentor or support the mission, visit. I'm going to let you do the website. Go ahead.
weareempower.org.
All right.
Weareempower.org.
weareempower.org. So every connection, every contribution, every share helps expand their reach and impact. And that's it for today's episode of Mic Up, the next chapter. I'm Kristin Guglielmo. Thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please follow, rate, and share the show so more people can hear their stories. Until next time, keep leaning into connection, community, and creating the next chapter together. Thank you. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Kristin.